Okay, so everyone, we are up to topic 6, muscle tissue. That means we are officially more than halfway through the subject. Yep, because there's only 10 topics in the subject, so we are officially more than halfway through. And it's been fun. I've enjoyed myself. Okay, here we go. Muscle. We need muscle in order to move around, to move us around and to move things in our body around. Now, muscles are ultra special because they are energy converters. So you are an energy converting machine. Okay, so if you didn't think you were special before, you surely will think you're special now. Muscle tissue makes up about half of you. So it's a very big chunk of the body. Now, let's move us out of the way, Keaton. We're always in the way. Here we go, we'll chuck us up there. Let's think about energy. Okay, so energy, the word energy in physics means doing work, so making things move, or making heat. Okay, so work in physics means that there's force, so an object is moving. That is work. Okay, so there are two types of energy. It's kinetic energy and potential energy. Now, kinetic energy is energy that is work. So it's moving things around, okay? Now, or creating heat. So, great. I'll move that out of the way. So kinetic energy is moving things around. It's work. Potential energy means that it's stored energy that we haven't used yet. So kinetic energy is we're using it, it's currently working, whereas potential energy, it's ready to go, it's stored, but it hasn't come out yet. Now this might seem a little bit foreign to you, but it'll make sense in a minute. So there are different things, so different objects in our lives that actually, let's make it a little bit smaller. There are different things in our lives that convert energy, okay? Different things in our lives that convert energy. For example, your toaster converts electrical energy into heat, and that's how you toast your toast. Your electrical outlet, okay, sends electricity to your TV. So your TV converts electricity to sound and light. This battery, this flashlight, converts the energy in the battery into light. And you, as a person, convert food into movement, okay? Now, I don't know which famous scientist said this, but you cannot destroy energy, you cannot create energy. All you're doing is converting energy, all right? So we are converting energy all the time. Now, our muscles convert energy, right? So here is your muscle tissue. You've got potential energy that goes in, so stored energy, and then you've got kinetic energy that goes out. So your muscle converts potential energy into kinetic energy. For example, if I have a motorbike, potential energy would be the petrol, and the actual motion of the motorbike would be kinetic energy. So that is exactly how your muscles work. Potential energy is converted to kinetic energy. So you've got chemicals being converted into movement. That's what muscles do. Right, before we move on, let's have a look at the different types of muscle tissue in our bodies. So we've got skeletal muscle. This is skeletal muscle here. And we're going to look at the structure of all of this later on. But just so you know now, skeletal muscles are the ones that are attached to your skeleton. And they are usually voluntary. So they are allowed to move. Muscles make our skeleton move around. Then we've got a different type of muscle called cardiac muscle. Now that muscle is only found in the heart, okay? Now, as you know, those muscle cells are not under voluntary control. They are involuntary, okay? But they are a different kind of muscle tissue and they're arranged in a slightly different way. And the last kind of muscle tissue that we have is smooth muscle. Now, this type of muscle is found in areas where you need to move things along, like your stomach or your digestive system. Again, it's not under voluntary control, okay? So, for example, your bladder, your stomach, okay, they have smooth muscle cells. And if you see the word striations, all that means is stripy. So skeletal muscle cells are stripy. They look striped, like they have stripes on them. And then smooth and cardiac muscle cells don't look like they have stripes. And in our next lecture, I will show you why they look stripy. Right. So what I want you to do as a consolidation activity is complete this concept map using the following words. Muscle tissue converts ant into what? And there are 3 types of muscle tissue, okay? Just to make sure that we are on top of everything that we're kind of learning. Right, muscle tissue is really particular. It does fancy things. Muscle tissue has 4 different special characteristics. The first thing is that muscle tissue can actually do an action potential. Now, if you haven't done 165, I can give you some resources to understand that, but neurons and muscle tissue are the only tissue in the body that can do action potentials. And just to get your head around what that kind of means, an action potential is kind of a signal that goes all the way along the muscle tissue, much like when you ignite a twig. Okay, you put the fire here and the fire travels all the way down. Okay, so we're going to look at that later when we do muscle contraction. The other thing, that muscles can contract. Right? So this is another characteristic of muscle. Can your bones contract? No. So your muscles can contract. That means that they have the ability to shorten. The other thing that they can do is that they can extend. So they contract and they can also extend. And they can do that without being damaged. That's what makes muscles so good. And can you see how the muscles are there to move the bones around? So, muscles work a lot like rubber bands because you can stretch them out and then they can come back and not be damaged. But you can break a rubber band. So what does that mean with regards to damaging a muscle, Keaton?
Yeah, I think the point here, Nat, is that we can damage our muscles, and then we need to be able to identify what happens to the person when they are damaged, what clinical manifestations occur, and how we can repair them again.
Exactly. So just like a rubber band, you can stretch it and it will come back, but if you stretch it too far, it will break. And if you don't use a rubber band a lot, it will get all dry and horrible. So you need to work your muscles all the time to keep them in nice condition. Right, here we go. I want you to complete this mind map now, specifying adding the characteristics of each muscle tissue to make sure that we hold all of this information in our beautiful brains as we go. Right, let's look at the functions of muscle. It's pretty straightforward, yeah? They allow us to move, okay? They attach to structures, and when the muscle contracts, that structure moves. Pretty straightforward, hey? And not only do they move our skeleton, but they also move stuff around. This is kind of a bit creepy, isn't it? But anyway, this is the heart, as you know, and it's a muscle, and it moves blood around. This could be like a digestive system. And can you see how it's contracting? When it does that, it moves food along, or feces along, or whatever along, okay? So we use muscles to move stuff around. The other thing that muscles are good for is that it allows us to maintain our posture, okay? So it allows us to be upright. Remember, you've got a curve in your spine, and it's always adjusting to make sure that we don't fall over. So we are walking, we are doing whatever, these muscles are always adjusting to make sure our skeleton is sitting how it should be sitting. Because we live in a planet with gravity. Boo. Well, actually, it's not boo. You kind of need a little bit of gravity. Okay. Right, this is where I was talking to you about the joints. Okay, now I'm sure a lot of you have done injury to this part of your body or know someone that has. Now, the other thing that I told you about is, remember when I talked to you about the scapula? Now, the scapula is not attached to the axial skeleton by cartilage. It's actually attached by a muscle. See, look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 muscles attach your scapula to your humerus. Right? So this is called the rotator cuff. Now, if you had a shoulder injury or there's something wrong with these muscles, then the humerus can pop out, and that's called a shoulder dislocation. Yeah? So if these muscles are too relaxed or there's something wrong with the connections or something's happened, this scapula can come off, and also this will not support the humerus, so the humerus can actually pop out. So as you can see, the muscles contribute to the stability of a joint. They hold the joint in place. If the muscles are broken or they're not there, the joint can fall apart. That's why exercise is so important to maintain joint health. Right, the other things that muscles do is they make heat. Now, I'm going to show you how that happens when we do muscle contraction, but just for your information, muscles use ATP, and in the process of contraction, muscles generate heat, okay? And that is just a byproduct of contracting, okay? And that's just something that just happens as a chemical reaction. So when muscles contract, they generate heat because of the chemical reactions in there. All right, you can use this concept map, wow, look at it, to recap everything that you have learnt in this lecture. Let's talk about muscle atrophy. Keaton, would you like to have a... Yep.
Thanks, Nat. Yeah, it's really important. A lot of the patients that we look after will be older adults. And so it's really important to understand what muscle atrophy is and how it occurs. We know that we should always encourage patients to do everything that they can for themselves, and that by doing things for patients that don't need something done for them, that we can take that skill or that function away from them. So, for example, if a patient is able to dress themselves, then of course we would encourage them to continue doing that activity unless there's a reason not to, because we want them to continue using and working those muscles so that they don't atrophy, so that we don't get a loss of tone of that muscle. We know that by being in hospital, everybody's muscles start to atrophy, so it will only take a day of being on bed rest, that our muscles will stop being as strong as what they were. And so constant movement, getting the physiotherapist involved and making sure that patients continue to move and use those muscles is a really important part of what we need to do as nurses.
It's just like anything in biology or in anatomy and physiology. If you don't use it, you lose it. So this is particularly important with regards to muscle. If you don't use a muscle, it will get smaller and smaller and smaller and weaker. And yeah, it's basically you need to use the muscle organ in order to keep it healthy and keep those joints where they need to be. Okay? Awesome. Thank you.